Robin Hood tax, the securities transfer tax, trading tax, Wall Street sales tax is probably best term for the U.S. The Wall Street sales tax. Now, the Robin Hood tax proposal up there at Robin Hood tax in Britain and Armut gegen Steuer in Germany. The question with this is it's not clear whether it's supposed to be national or something else. Here in the U.S., there's no doubt it should be national. In the European Union, you might want to do it at a European level to prevent this race to the bottom stuff. But over here, national with then the states participating in the revenue and some equitable form of distribution among the states, which otherwise would concentrate the revenue in New York, Massachusetts, Illinois, and California. We don't want it quite that concentrated because we want other states to benefit from this, to participate in the results, in the revenue. Be a national tax. It should not be used for global warming in the sense that a radical ecologist or global warming freak normally understands this. The other thing is that their proposal is way too small. They're proposing 1/20th of 1%. The proposal in Europe on the Robin Hood tax website says we'll charge a 1/20th of 1% tax. That is 0.05% tax, and get 150 billion euros European Union wide, with about something like 4 to 8 billion pounds being for the British side of the budget. This is too low. If you came out with that, you could live with it, but that's looking at it the wrong way. You're going into it now. You're going into a process of fighting and ultimately of haggling. So you better get it up to 1%, because if you take it down to 1/20th of 1%, you're going to come out with nothing. If you start with 1%, you're going to come out with something more respectable. Even the AFL-CIO, which is no bulwark of radicalism, is demanding 1/10th of 1%, 1 mil. So that's twice as much as this Robin Hood tax. So the Robin Hood tax has to be increased. It has to be national. It has to be cut away from this nonsense about climate change. And also then, if you're talking about third world development, the way you do that that makes sense is you say this tax will be used for export financing of high technology capital goods made in the United States, in our case, or made in Britain or made in the European Union, and shift into the third world. Not the idea that you're going to give money to some elite in some African country. This has been tried. It doesn't work well. What you got to say is we're going to deliver capital goods to you, and we're going to help you install them and get them going. That leads to economic development. Otherwise, you're asking for the money essentially to disappear into the night. And also, I don't necessarily mean that the local elites are going to steal it, but the banks sure will. In other words, they'll demand that money be used for debt service on loans owed to the Club of London, Club of Paris. That is to say, the private and the London private and public and the Parisian group, the private debtors of the third world. So we don't want any of that. So with those caveats, and there's obviously problems in Sherwood Forest. Take a look at my website, tarpley.net. As always, is the starting point from day to day on all of these issues. So take a look at tarpley.net, and then take a look at Robin Hood tax, and get this going. Right, Congressman DeFazio is for it. You got a lot of leftists in the Democratic House faction who are now essentially cast adrift by Obama, and they're going to try to save themselves. So in this general breakdown of the system, this is the one impulse vector going on right now that leads in a positive direction. Now, having said all this, let's lift and shift over to the Obama healthcare situation. This is now on the verge of a thinly veiled dictatorship, seeing a trampling on the Constitution in unprecedented ways. The big news yesterday, that is to say Thursday of this week, is that Congressman Kucinich, who had been posturing as a principled opponent of the Obama bailout of insurance companies, since that is what it is, and I would add destruction of Medicare, because that's also what it is, Congressman Kucinich has now betrayed every principle that he claimed to have and has rolled over, as usual, for Obama. We were not surprised. You notice I wrote things about stopping Obamacare, I never cited Kucinich because you could tell this moment is coming. He is too weak. He is too compromised. He is morally no longer there. So Kucinich has betrayed his base. This is supposedly the leader of the left wing of the Democratic Party. This is a bad joke. Remember, this is the guy who transferred his delegates in the Iowa caucus back in early 2008. Even before the first caucus was over, Kucinich had transferred his support to Obama. So he's part of this monstrosity, and he was present at the creation. Kucinich has now been joined by Lynn Woolsey, the really airhead leader of the Progressive Caucus. This woman is of a superficiality and a silliness which is simply embarrassing. If you look around the commentators on this issue, I think the one that has the clearest view, or the one most resembling my own, and therefore which I cordially support, Glenn Ford over at the Black Agenda Report, I think has the line. You can listen to his brief radio commentary, and Kucinich. Now, this is essentially Kucinich betrays all of his principles. Democratic Party, rest in peace. The Democratic Party is now a rotten carcass. It is clear that you can go into Democratic primaries for the purpose of poaching there and getting things done there. But the idea of being a loyal member of the Democratic Party, this idea is now useless and obsolete. They have turned definitively against the heritage of Franklin D. Roosevelt. In other words, this subservience to Wall Street, this idea that you'd have a health care plan which is a bailout of bankrupt insurance companies, a bailout of insurance companies that have bankrupted themselves by derivatives speculation, which is what this is an insult to everything that Franklin D. Roosevelt stood for. He fought Wall Street, was hated by Wall Street, and defeated Wall Street. Obama, of course, a Wall Street puppet, and Rahm Emanuel, a Wall Street thug enforcer. So that's one. The second one, of course, Lyndon B. Johnson. Well, his great achievement, Medicare, great humanitarian triumph, saved countless, hundreds of thousands, millions of lives over the past decades. This is now going to carve $500 billion out of Medicare. That will cause deaths. And then Kennedy, of course. We know Kennedy was famous for the moonshot, NASA, and the Apollo program. Well, that has now been destroyed by Obama. So in the key categories, we see that all of that hype from Newsweek magazine and the rest of these idiots at the beginning of 2009, that Obama was the new Roosevelt, the new Johnson, the new Kennedy, all nonsense, all lies and idiocy and filth. He is the absolute antithesis of all of those. So the Democratic Party, rest in peace. A thinly veiled dictatorship is at hand. Now, the form of Obama's bill is that of the Mussolini fascist corporate state. And I stress, I'm not throwing this out as some kind of an epithet or, gratuitous insult, you're a fascist, this, that, and the other thing. But this is a very precise structural definition of the component parts of Obama's plan. Remember, the fascist corporate state, as practiced by Mussolini and then copied on later by National Socialism in Germany, is that of a state-sponsored compulsory cartel for the purpose of driving down wages, driving down production or production of services, and propping up speculative, fictitious claims on income. In other words, today, derivatives and all kinds of Wall Street speculation. We will show in just a minute that this is what Obama is doing. Back in a minute.